I don't think going back to only requiring 120 credits to be licensed is something that will open up way more doors for people to become CPAs, just because the hardest part of becoming a CPA is the CPA exams, and that's not changing. So the only difference now is that you don't need the extra 30 credits. I'm not exactly sure. I also saw on a Reddit post someone said how they don't understand why the AICPA wants to open up more doors for people to become CPAs. You guys, the AICPA has finally proposed changing the 150 credit hour rule to get your CPA license back to 120 credits, which means that you will possibly no longer need to get the extra 30 credits in order to get your CPA license. I have mixed feelings about this because on one hand, I love it because, to be honest, I've always thought that the requirement to have 150 credits to have your CPA license was kind of unnecessary, because I know people who just took random classes like ceramics and other stuff that have nothing to do with being an accountant in order to get that 150 credits. And I also know people who did a master's in accounting, but the only reason that they were doing the master's in accounting was to fulfill the 150 credit requirement, not necessarily to get a master's degree in accounting. And I think that this rule will be beneficial for people because a lot more people will pursue the CPA exams. I think that a big reason why a lot of people don't get their CPA is for one of two reasons. One, it's because of the extra 30 credits that you need to get on your own, because that's just an added cost and added time that is just not necessary. And obviously the other reason is because they can't pass the CPA exams. So I know that Virginia and Ohio and some other states have already said that they will add an additional path, which is the 120 credit route, which means that you will need 120 credits, you need to pass the CPA exams, you need 2 years of work experience, and you will also need to demonstrate proficiency in 7 areas, which include ethical behavior, critical thinking and professional skepticism, communication, collaboration, teamwork and leadership, self-management and continuous learning, business acumen, and technology mindset. And in addition, you also need to have demonstrate proficiency in 1 of 3 technical areas, which include audit, tax, or business and financial reporting. So that is a new path that the AICPA is proposing for states to add as an alternative path for the CPA license. Of course, you can still go the 150 credit route, which is to have 150 credits to pass CPA exams and then to have 1 year of work experience. So the only real difference between the 150 credit path versus the 120 credit path is that if you decide to pursue the 120 credit path, then you need 2 years of work experience. Whereas if you go down the 150 credit path, then you only need 1 year of work experience. So I think that's worth it. I think for me, if this was an option when I was getting my CPA and stuff, I think I would have chosen the 120 credit hour path and then just gotten an extra year of work experience. And I think this will open a lot more doors for people to pursue the CPA. I think this is a good proposal, but of course, every state is going to accept this proposal at different speeds. So originally you only needed 120 credits to get CPA licensed, but I believe in 1988 was what I read. Don't quote me on the year, I'm not exactly sure, but sometime in the late 1900s, they decided to change the rule to 150 credits, but it did take for all the states and jurisdictions to adapt that 150 credit rule. And really only in the last decade was when all the states and jurisdictions required that 120 credit rule. So I'm assuming that going back down to only 120 credits required will take a while for all the states and jurisdictions to adapt to. I'm not exactly sure. I also saw on a Reddit post someone said how They don't understand why the AICPA wants to open up more doors for people to become CPAs, because then people don't really value the CPA license as much, which I do understand because it's not an easy license to get. I went through it. I know it's difficult, it's rough, but it's not impossible because I am just someone who perseveres. I don't think going back to only requiring 120 credits to be licensed is something that will open up way more doors for people to become CPAs, just because the hardest part of becoming a CPA is the CPA exams, and that's not changing. So the only difference now is that you don't need the extra 30 credits, which will make it a little bit easier, but I don't think it's going to make it so much easier. And I also did read online that 75% of CPAs are 55 and older, which means they're going to be retiring the workforce in the next decade or so, and they need to find new people to replace them and their jobs. Which I'm still really glad that AI has not replaced my job, because at work, my coworkers always joke about that. They always say something like, oh, well, you should be grateful because at least we still have jobs because AI hasn't replaced us. LOL. Am I kind of envious of people who will be graduating in the next 5, 10, 20, 30 years who won't have to get the extra 30 credits? Yes, I am, because I got a master's degree in accounting to get that 150 credits. But then again, I also did build a lot of connections when I was in grad school, so I don't necessarily regret that. But the 120 credit path will be less stress and less cost for a CPA license. And I don't know if this is something that all the states will follow. Like I said, it did take a lot of states a long time to get on board with the 150 credit rule. So going back to the 120 credit rule will probably take a bunch of time also. But yeah, probably really random, rambly video because I didn't really prepare for this video. I literally saw a YouTube video about this. I didn't even know that they were implementing this new 120 credit rule. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about it. If you like it, if you don't like it, but definitely subscribe to the notification. And I will talk to you guys next time. Goodbye.